Hey folks, my name's Kevin and it's time for some more knife nerdery, and today we've got a pretty darn exciting unboxing because this is a knife from Jake, aka Bearded Gear, but this isn't just any knife. This is Jake's knife. This is the prototype Luft Concepts Avant. Now if you don't know what that is, and I just said Jake's knife, the truth is this is a knife that Jake and Ryan from Rimmer Designs designed together. Luft Concepts is a company they created together over this last year, and this knife is something they designed completely together as a collaboration. They had a pre-order earlier. If you didn't get in on it, sorry, it's already sold out, but these are the prototypes they made through Riot. I don't know which one he sent to me because there's two different colorways. I ordered one because it's right up my alley, and I definitely didn't order the other because it's nowhere near a colorway I would go. I'm not an OD green and black PVD person at all. So if he sent me that one, it'll be fun because there's, the version that I definitely won't get to check out later. But we'll find out. I will wait for the the small details review to go into what does Luft Concepts mean, what is the Avant, where that name come from, all the backstory. Today we just want to check this out. And I gotta say, I'm incredibly excited. This is a knife that, honestly, when I saw it, it really stood out to me. It looks different than anything else out there. It's at the same time, it looks like some really nice things out there. And what you'll find is that Jake and Ryan basically took the elements that they really like in knives and put them together to build the perfect knife for them. I tend to have slightly aesthetic differences from Jake, hence the OD green and black PVD. But when it comes to like what's functionally good in a knife and what I think would like work well in a design, we tend to see eye to eye really, really well. And so I'm super duper excited to see what this is like. Let's open this up. To do so, I'm going to use the Giant Mouse Ace Riv because this is another Riot OEM'd knife in M390 and micarta handle and titanium and everything like that. So let's check this out. Still not used to opening things up with a front-facing camera like that. Jake always tapes these up super well. Okay. Okay, right off the bat, he included a bunch of stickers, and he told me to take some and pass them on because I'm going to be mailing this off to some other folks too. And what we have is a holographic Bearded Gear, a laser cut, I guess they're all laser cut, but these ones are like to the shape, holes over studs, and this is Jake's I like hole opening knives more than stud opening knives logo / euphemism. No, that's not the word I want. Motto, that's the word I wanted. And so these are really cute and fun. And then lastly, we've got the Luft Concepts logo. And yeah, this is really, really cool. And then this is also really fun. The entire thing is wrapped up right now in a Renegade Provisions Co. Hank, which is, I'm gonna not look at the knife just yet. Oh, I didn't know these exist. Well, no, I saw pictures. I didn't know these were actually physical yet. This is a new Luft Concepts Avant Hank. Jake has had a Hank of his Bearded Gear logo, not this one, but the like Mountain Beard logo one, done by Chris over at Renegade Provisions Co. And this one is new for Luft Concepts. And this is actually my first time. Sorry, Chris. This is my first time experiencing one of your Hanks. And this is indeed really, really nicely done. The stitching on this is very tight, very even. The little leather patch is very nice and the embossing is great. And then the material on the back is this really soft, pleasant, like microfibery kind of feel. I have been trying to figure out which of Chris's Hanks I'm going to order at some point. He has a million of them, and they're all like a wide variety of styles. So this is very fun. Actually, I'll probably pick up one of these when they come out. And okay, here's the knife. Okay, so he did send me the colorway that I ended up ordering. Let's take a look at this. I've learned from past videos that I need to just hold this here way longer and move it around way slower. Because I'm super anxious to get it back. I have to cover up the thing with my hand. I have to cover up my face with my hand so it doesn't try and autofocus. But this means that I don't get to see the knife when I'm doing this. So I'm always too anxious and want to get it back. Ooh. Okay, it's so freaking cool having this be a tangible thing in my hand because I've seen so many pictures of this. I've seen so many videos of this. Okay. And it does do the ring! Ah, okay. I probably shouldn't have started with this one because holes over studs. He has not immortalized in some kind of paraphernalia what his take on flipper tabs is, but I imagine since it made the knife, it's probably also over studs, but that's not true. If I'm being honest, he probably would prefer studs over flipper tabs if that was the only opening method, because you can reverse flick those. Speaking of which, oh, that flicks very, very well. Okay, I got, yeah. Can you hear this? Even I'm not flicking it out super hard. My hand is a little bit damp right now. I just got out of the shower not long ago, and so it's not gripping against the back of my hand. But do you hear this ring? Oh, that is so cool. Man, I hope the production versions do that. So what's happening here is this is very thinly ground hollow grind, and hollow ground knives, if they're come thin enough for long enough at the edge, they ring like a bell. And when they thwack open with like an authoritative thwack, this edge goes ding like a tuning fork. I don't know if it's going to capture, but I know that other people have captured that in their videos before. Okay, this is awesome. There are so many things about this knife that have got me really excited. First, let's just look at this profile, because this really does stand out. There's no other knife on the market that looks like this. And at the same time, there are knives on the market that have elements that look like this. And they've been not at all shy to talk about what their influences are. Obviously, Jake is a huge fan of the Koenig Arius. He's a huge fan of the PM2. He's a fan of Striders that have this kind of more back shape. And you'll find elements of that across this entire knife. And that's, I think, very intentional. The whole concept of designing a knife as a knife enthusiast is to make a knife that has all of the bits and pieces that you find you really like and that work really well, and put them into a single knife. And from everything I've heard when them talking about how they design the knife together, they have nearly identical taste in what they want out of a knife. And so it makes total sense that the two of them together would put those same elements into their knife they designed. Okay, let's get a sense. I keep on wanting to flick it because it just flicks so well. A sense of how this feels in hand. Where do I want to? Okay, so this is one of the most prominent features, obviously. This is a very pronounced thumb ramp. And what it's designed is for you to put your thumb right there. And that feels spectacular. I've talked with Jake in the past, and we both agree that jimping on knives is almost always an excuse for bad ergos. It's like a way to kind of come back from the fact that your ergos weren't good enough for the knife to stay in your hand well. And so if you're trying to add aggressive, grippy texture to hold it in place, that kind of sucks. And so something like this, where you have a smooth, pleasant, really nice to press against surface, but that uses this big ramp here to be that anchor point, means that you don't need any jimping. This feels so pleasant to rub my thumb against, and yet this feels very locked in. But a large part of that is also going to come out of what's happening right here, because as you're pushing forward here, my fingers are curling in here, and my forefinger is pressing against that, and I have this kind of like pinched together hold, and this is not able to move in any direction. This feels very, 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 very good in my hand. If I choke back and hold it back here, I can't really see myself. I guess you would do this if and only if you really wanted to get your hands completely out of the way, but this it's interesting because this actually feels really, really good, but I don't really see myself doing that. I feel like I would always be up here. I have, Jake always says that he has medium-sized gloves, hands, but he fills them out real well. He wears medium-sized gloves. I think I'm kind of the opposite. I wear medium-sized gloves, but I don't fill them out that great. I have slightly on the smaller size medium gloves, and this knife feels like it fits my hand really, really well still. I don't know how big my hands actually are compared to Jake, and he and Ryan definitely said that they designed this knife in terms of the size and shape to fit them specifically. But this actually fits really, really well in my hand, regardless of whether or not I have some space back here or not. I never really feel like I have a ton sticking out, even if I'm choked up all the way. Like even if I tried to do this in a full-on, really, really choked up hammer grip and all this is sticking out, I would never actually, well, I could see maybe holding it that way if I'm really trying to push hard, but realistically, I would do that more like this, like right there. And then yeah, no, this fits great. Okay. One of the biggest things that I really wanted to see and that really drew me to this knife is this flipper tab design. And that's part of what's happening here. The reason I'm able to choke up like this is because the flipper tab goes completely out of the way. And it comes at some costs. One of the things that they're planning on changing about this knife is cutting back this corner just slightly. And I can already see why, because if you pull back, wow, it sings every time I do that. If you pull back, you get really nice, easy, comfortable, like light switch action. That works so well. But if you try and push button this at all, you're pushing right in a corner. And so they said that for the full production run, this is going to be lobbed off just slightly to make it easier for you to push down on. And Ryan took his production sample and did that himself on a grinder and found that it does indeed work. But what I love about these, the important thing is that low-hanging, forward-facing flipper tabs like this allow you to get a tremendous amount of traction and pull back and maintain traction on it the entire way, and then allow it to not jut out downward. And I gotta say, this is such an important and good, oh, I'm not getting past that ramp. Such an important and good flipper tab design. And it's something that I've loved seeing in other knives. So things like, here, this is the Spyderco Smock. And yeah, these are obviously different, but the same general concept that you have something that is low down and forward facing that allows you to pull up higher on the knife and then pull it back. And as a result, the flipper tab is able to just disappear. Now, they're doing it differently. This is a compression lock, so the lockup is at the top of the knife, which is how they're able to hide it here. But this forward-facing thing means that you're able to get really good traction, even if there's not a strong detent. And so like this version of the Smock that I have has an extremely weak detent, but I still can get a really, really nice, snappy, I can still get a really nice snappy flick on it because the way that I'm able to get a good purchase and maintain contact this entire way. And as a result, you can get a really nice snap on this. But as I said, these folks are doing it by having the lockup at the top. Something like this is the Monterey Bay Knives double detent version of Slayback. It also has a low down forward facing flat edge flipper tab that gives you a really nice thwack, but they're able to do it by having this not have a standard lock face at all. Like this is a double detent knife. On the Avant, they're doing something reasonably unique. There are a very small number of knives that are doing something similar. What they're doing is hiding the flipper tab at the base here and pulling the lock face on a standard liner lock style lock face higher up above the flipper tab. So right now, the lock face is in here and the flipper tab is slightly coming out in front of it. And I think one of the places where I've seen this done even more dramatically, this is the Blade HQ, I think this is the first in-house knife Blade HQ did. This is the Vox Dapper, and this is an actual Blade HQ like branded knife. And you'll see it has a low down, forward facing flipper tab like this that completely hides into the bottom of the knife. And it is also a standard liner lock. And this one does it significantly more dramatically by pulling the lock bar really far up and having the flipper tab really extend down. I don't remember if I filmed an unboxing video for this or not, but I'm really excited to talk about the geometry of this and why this works so incredibly well. And the version you find here is the exact same concept. It's just slightly less exaggerated, but it means that you can have that really good flipping action. That works just so, you have such good leverage, and yet you don't have any flipper tab. I love that. Okay. The blade stock on this, I mentioned the thumb ramp earlier, but this is crowned at the top, and God, that's beautiful, and that feels so nice. When would I ever choke up like this? Would I? Do I feel comfortable doing that? I probably wouldn't do that, but would I choke up like this? Yes. Oh, and that feels good. Oh yeah, resting my finger on that feels really, really nice. The blade stock on this, if I remember correctly, is 3.5 millimeters. And that's 0.138 inches. And that's kind of like the upper end of what I would want on an EDC knife. I tend on EDC knives to want thinner blade stocks to be slicier knives. And up around 0.14 is the high end of what I would want. Where they can get away with it, where they can go higher, is if they do a really aggressive grind. Like this is the, whoop, what am I doing? This is the F5.5, Urban EDC Supply Company F5.5, from Jesper Voxnaes. And this has 4 millimeter blade stock. Every half millimeter, you get an extra 0.02 inches. So this is 0.057-ish. And the reason why this is still able to be a very good EDC knife, even with this incredibly chunky blade stock, is because of how aggressive this grind is. It can be even more aggressive. Kevin, Lefty EDC, just recently had a version of this reground to be even thinner. But this is such an aggressive grind and such a tall blade that they're able to get away with that and still make this be a very slicey knife. But this is still a flat grind. And so this would work even better if they did a hollow grind, which is what they've done here. They've taken this relatively thick, by my personal standards, for an EDC knife blade stock. It's not thick, it's not. But it's thicker than I typically go for, and made it super freaking thin by putting this extremely aggressive hollow grind on here. This is my first time doing the finger calipers. Yeah. Wow. So they say that this hits 15 thousandths on the edge. They said that that is the target they were going for, and from just running my fingers along it, I extremely believe that. Wow, yeah, this is very thin. This is gonna be so slicey. I just posted a video recently about the Trevor Burger LEXK, and the hollow grind on that thing was absolutely insane. It stays thin for so long. And this is, the hollow grind on this is not staying as thin as long as that, but this is actually staying really, really thin for a really long period of time. I have no idea if my camera is going to focus on this at all, but that's kind of, wow. So yeah, I fully imagine this is going to be very, very slicey. One thing that I have wondered is, if you notice on a grind like this, it's significantly thinner right here than it is right here. And you can see that this line right here is where like the flat is. And so this top part is the full thickness of the blade stock. And this cutout comes pretty deep in. So what I wonder, and I'm gonna try, I have not heard anyone else mention this, but I'm gonna see if pushing through very thick, not wanting to move, like double-walled cardboard, ends up making this kind of hit this top part, because I wonder about that, because this is so much thinner right here than it is right there. I don't anticipate it being an issue, and no one else has mentioned it, and even this specific knife, I'm pretty sure, has gotten a fair amount of testing, because this got passed around to folks that were going to put it through its paces to make sure it was actually working well. But I'm curious about that. What else do I want to talk about in this video, because I know I always go into too much details. Oh, that's this right there. I want to talk about that. The detent ball ramp. Yes. Okay, so in the disassembly that Jake did for his channel, wow. The ringing on that. Anyway, in the disassembly, I saw that it has not just a detent ball ramp, but like a really pretty, what looked to be like a really, really well done one. What makes a detent ball ramp well done, okay, backing up, a detent ball ramp is a little ramp cut into the blade tang that allows the detent ball to glide effortlessly up onto the tang rather than having to pop up on it. And to give you a counter example, this one does not have a detent ball ramp. Here it's open, here it's on the lock bar, but not on the detent ball yet, and I have to push up over that bump. That goes away if you have a detent ball ramp like this. And so this one is a very well done detent ball ramp, but it still has this bump up at the beginning. It's a very minor bump, but it's still there. And what's going on is that the detent ball ramp is not deep enough at the beginning to fully clear the detent ball. And so it still has to bump up slightly to get onto the ramp at all. And then once it's there, it's a very smooth transition. And from the pictures, this looked like from the depth transition that would be really good, but I couldn't tell the length of the detent ball ramp affects the angle that it comes off at the end. And that looked like it'd be really, really good, but I couldn't feel, I couldn't tell from the pictures how deep it was and whether or not it'd have that same initial bump up, and it does not at all. Oh, that's really, really good. I have felt smoother detent ball ramps. Like the ramp itself on this feels like you can feel a very slight grittiness, but also I don't know when the last time this was cleaned. It might literally just be a little bit dirty. But what from a geometry perspective and how deep it comes in, there's no bump whatsoever. There's just seamless. One of the consequences of a detent ball ramp that's long enough to be seamless even on the upper end is that you're still on the ramp until right about there. And so you might have seen earlier, I had this closing and I had it still up here on the ramp and I tried to shake it. Let's see if I can recreate that again. Yeah, okay. If you're on a ramp, the tendency of the lock bar is going to push the ramp. It's going to try to push the ball down the ramp because that's like the effect of, that'd be like the equivalent of like a ball rolling down a ramp with gravity. The lock bar is going to try to push the ball down the ramp. And so if you're on the very like top of the lock bar and you shake it, it's more likely to bounce open. That's true of any knife with a detent ball ramp. And so what you do instead is you get this low enough to slow down and then you go down and that's super easy to close. That's another thing I wanted to see. Okay, so when you fully suppress a lock bar, you can see how freely it falls to your nail. And some knives will fall kind of like very gently to your nail. And this one is just like absolutely like nothing at all. You can also see that the way they designed this means that this is not up high enough that this doesn't come down enough that it was going to risk like hitting any part of my knuckle. I suppose if I held my hand like this, it could hit my knuckle, but I don't normally do that. I normally go like that, which means this is perfect. And at that point, oof. Yeah. Okay, so another thing I wanted to see right off the bat is whether or not the flipper tab part would interfere with my hand as it falls like that. Now I'm going to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. Here is a whippersnapper from Olamic, and you can see that this edge right here, when I go to close it, it has to swing past my finger. And you see how it kind of juts in just a little bit right there? If I have my finger down low, this will clear it easily. But if I have my finger at the very top up here, then this flipper, that little part right there, catches on my finger and the knife won't actually fall. And another place that you'll find this is on knives like the f5.5. The f5.5 has this little tiny cliff right here. And as a result, this little edge travels through this path right there. You see that? And as a result, if I have my thumb up too high, it again will land right on my thumb and not fall down. And so one of the things that I was worried about with this hidden flipper tab is whether or not that would work, like whether or not it would come down. I think this one does it too. Yeah, so what I was worried that this might travel into my thumb's path, but what I'm seeing is that it perfectly clears. I think I could make that happen, yeah. If I really shove at the top of this, shove my thumb up to the top, I can block it. But that's a pretty unnatural way to press in this. The more natural place is right here, where you would, like, this is where the other show side scale is recessed and where this little indentation is here, the scalloping. And that, yeah, it just goes straight out of the way. This is, oh, there's so many little details that are well done here. Okay, I need to call this quits because I'm going on for too long. I only have this knife for about a week, but I'm going to do a thorough small details review because, again, like I just said, there's so many little details here that are just done really, really well. And my gut reaction is that I'm very, very impressed by this. I thought I would be. Oh, I didn't even talk about the blade shape. This is not normally the blade shape I would go for. I tend to go for something without quite as strong of a belly, but this is so flat at the bottom that this belly, it kind of looks almost like a Japanese style tanto that doesn't have the hard corner. And so my suspicion, and I'll try this, is to see just how well this corner here, or like kind of false corner, can work as the piercing tip for opening boxes the way that you would on something like a sheep's foot design, because I don't think I would want to get the actual point in. It would work fine for getting to the side of boxes, but running along the top, anyway, we'll find out. Yeah, rambling too long. I will do a full small details review before I send this back out. And I think the thing I want to end on is part of the reason why this is really exciting me is because this is my first time experiencing a totally true prototype. I got to play with that prototype version of the bolster lock whippersnapper, but that was prototyping a new lock face mechanism. Not even that, the lock face is the same. Prototyping a new handle mechanism, effectively. The knife is still a really established knife that I was already experiencing. This is a prototype of a knife that doesn't exist in the world. There's only like 4 of these in existence, I think, but the bigger thing is just that this is a totally new thing in the universe, and I'm getting to experience the rough draft version of it. And nothing about this feels like a rough draft. It's so well done, but that's just, I've never gotten to do that before, and that's really, really cool. And the other thing about that that's really neat is, like, I'm a tiny, tiny channel, and this pre-order has already been sold out. And yeah, they're absolutely going to do more runs of this and other materials and stuff like this. This sold out in a single day, so they will be doing more. But where I'm going is that, like, Jake didn't send this to me because I'm going to be able to get PR. He sent this knife originally to friends of his. And so none of them were really that way. But, like, you could send a knife to someone because they're really famous and them talking about your knife is going to make it sell better. And that's definitely not the case of what's going on here, because I'm a tiny channel and, like, it's not even for sale anymore. And so Jake just sent this to me because he likes me and because he knew I was really excited about it, and he knew that I wanted to see it, and he knew that, and he wanted to hear what I thought about it. And that makes me feel really good. That makes me feel really, I don't know, that's just really cool. This is a first in a lot of ways for me in my engagement with the community. And I really appreciate it. This is incredible. So Jake, thank you so much for trusting me with your baby here. I am pretty blown away by it, and I cannot wait to do the full small details review. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Jake, for sending this to me.